The next question then I guess would be about is there a particular, I don't know what, I guess if I should call them extraterrestrial or interdimensionals that have kind of are supposed to make this contact, or is this something that we've kind of made up through media, and that's actually what's not going to happen? It's just that we're all just on an individual basis are going to notice changes, but that planetary wise, that really contact is not happening. Or can you speak a little bit more about that just to kind of clear up the confusion?
Yes, well, there are a wide range of what you would call extra dimensional beings, star beings, and they are all of different frequencies, all of different resonance, all of different densities, if you will. So, what that means to you is that some are perceivable by your physical senses, but most, we would say, are not perceivable by your physical senses. So, you could say that contact has already occurred and is occurring. It's occurring in this moment between you and I, so to speak. So contact is already unfolding. It's just that people don't always recognize contact in the sense of those more subtle communications, those subtle interactions, those intuitive interactions. But we would say that humanity has been interacting with extra dimensionals for millennia, if you will. So it isn't a new thing. Now, if your question is, will there be actual physical contact? Well, that is a possibility, but we would say in this moment in time, the focus should be on the contact that is already occurring, which is more of a subtle interaction that occurs through channeling and through intuition and through telepathy, that sort of thing. That needs to be recognized, brought out into the open, and seen as real, not just something that people are making up. Because this is the way, in this moment in time, that these beings are seeking to guide you and seeking to help you.
Okay, that makes sense. So basically, it's best to just make people more aware of how to become more sensitive to what's around them, and then they will have, instead of then having to spell everything out for them, I guess that by them becoming more open, they'll start having their own understanding about what's happening too.
Yes.
So then that way we don't have to just wait for that physical ship to land, so to say.
Exactly. So we would say that when any being has an actual experience of their own, then there's no convincing them otherwise. And you know this to be true with your own experiences, yes? So when a being has an experience, an actual experience with one of another dimension, then it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks or what anyone else says. You can't talk that person out of that experience because it's an actual experience that they have had. So we would say that a lot in terms of the intentions of those interacting with you from an extra dimensional perspective, there are many intentions that there would be the creation of these experiences between extra dimensionals and individuals to make that a real experience and make that true for each individual. Because as we said, in that experience of having a very real experience, then you can't talk a person out of their lived experience, if you will. So in terms of contact, in terms of disclosure, what's happening now is almost like a preparation in terms of preparing, interacting on a subtle energetic level first, on a energetic level, telepathic level first, as a means of preparing for maybe a greater physical interaction when the time is right for that. From our perspective, it feels like whether or not that will actually occur, that hasn't been decided yet. It seems as though to us there's this preparation phase in terms of, well, how is this interaction on a subtle level going to go first? It's almost like a shaking of hands, if you will.
Well, I just from personal experience and talking about that, it's a lot easier to speak this way than having had experiences the way I did. Not that there really was anything to fear. It's just I couldn't help myself but be afraid, but at least I never stopped kind of keep looking into it instead of just screaming or running away from it. But that's the part that I'm trying to personally understand is okay, look at all the challenges I've had, and I really want them to happen. How in the world is, wider, kind of, never mind extraterrestrial, just this interdimensional understanding, and, understanding about consciousness and all of that going to happen.
Yes, and we would add to that there is a very real element of your physiology of your human self that would feel fear in the face of an actual physical interaction with an extra dimensional. Yes, and so in terms of priming the system, the more subtle interaction is the best introduction so as not to terrify or traumatize your actual physical human self. And this is, we'll just tack on to that this is one of the ways and one of the reasons that the interactions are benevolent. Because if there was an intent to harm, the harm would be, number one, the harm would have already unfolded, the harm would have already manifested, and also there wouldn't be this gentle kind of interaction.
I definitely agree with that. The way I live my life now, for the most part, and what led me to this point is all the channeled information that I took to heart and put it to a test. And it was at one point many years ago now, but there was a thought about, okay, if this is supposed to be evil, like, why is it helping me out?
Exactly. Yes. So that is what we mean by a being's lived experience. Yes, so whether the experience is through a channeler or whether the experience is direct contact with an extra dimensional, it's still a real experience where you evaluate the energetic interaction, meaning how does this interaction feel? Does it feel like this being is helping me? Does it feel like a high frequency interaction, or does it feel malevolent in some way? And we would say that these interactions that are occurring either through channelers or through direct communication, telepathically or otherwise, the experiences are of wisdom, of peace, of wanting to help. And so when enough individuals experience those interactions, then those who may wish to frame this communication or this interaction in a different lens, in other words, by creating a false narrative that extra dimensionals or extraterrestrials are out to harm you, it'll be less likely that narrative would take root to a collective who has had an actual lived experience of the opposite, so to speak.
Right. Well, just to clarify, when I say helping out too, it's not necessarily that there's a helping hand reaching out and saying, here, let me push you in this direction or do that. It's just, I kind of see a similar way to an elder and a younger person that's just kind of starting out their life. You can tell them and suggest certain things and then let them try it, and they'll see for themselves whether or not that works. Because only then, after advice and advice, you kind of realize, okay, wow, I'm happy, this is working for me, and so on. So I'll listen more, but if you don't take that in to begin with, it doesn't matter whether you're a human giving advice or, a spirit giving advice. It's like, if you don't take it, it's not going to help you regardless.
Exactly. And as we've said through Karen many times, this, what you call life, is very much about experience. And so how do you know what works and what doesn't unless you try it and experience it? And so in terms of your guidance, whether that comes from an elder in your reality or an elder in another dimension, you try it, right? You try maybe the opposite of what they say, and then you try actually taking the suggestion, and then you come to realize where the wisdom is, so to speak.